Hi, I'm Pam, and I'm here with my monthly update video, letting you know what I was up to in the month of September. I thought Lily might stay in frame for a little longer, but she's now in my lap and soliciting belly rubs. But as for my updates, October kind of took me by surprise. Yesterday, when it was the 1st, I was kind of surprised that the month had come along so quickly. But September was a decent month. No guest appearances or anything that I can think of, but I continued streaming on Twitch twice a week, which I've actually really been enjoying. I think it was sort of a matter of finding the types of games that would be fun to play and that I could play as well as chat and, sort of multitask. So nothing terribly difficult, although I have played a few shmups and more difficult Metroidvanias. But I finished a playthrough of Blade Runner on stream, which I'll talk about a little later in what I've been playing. And I'm currently doing Laura Bow and the Dagger of Amon-Ra for the first time, and that playthrough should be concluding probably the day this video goes up. Now, I do have some news for October that I want to put in this video, otherwise it'll be too late if I do it next month. But I'm going to be doing some fundraising over on Twitch this month, starting on my birthday, which is October 4th. I am going to be fundraising for the Indian Residential School Survivors Society, which is a Canadian-based charity. It's out in BC for the survivors of residential schools and their families, which is a very important cause. So if you are at all interested, I will include a link to the charity and donation page in the description below, and feel free to stop by the stream, whether it's on the 4th or anytime through the month, and that will be running all month, I believe. I've never done fundraising before, so I'm kind of making this up as I go along. So moving on to my shout out for the month, and it is the channel A Critical Hit, which is by Critical Kate, who is a video game historian focusing on sort of forgotten video game history that doesn't get talked about all that much. And her videos are really excellent, very well researched, very well presented. My biggest complaint is that they are few and far between, so as long as you're fine with knowing that the videos are going to come out whenever they come out, definitely recommend this channel. She's got a couple different series. The first one is Forgotten History, where again, she talks about things that don't get talked about much. One video she has that's really good is about the real first video game Easter egg, which is not the one that Ready Player One told everyone it was. There's also a video on Nintendo's Forgotten FMV game, and a series I am very excited about on Video Game Dames. She's planning to talk about all of the playable female video game characters from the 1980s, which is pretty cool. I sort of, all of my video game knowledge definitely comes from sort of the late 80s and onwards, so really interested to learn more about those sort of early 80s games. And episode 0 of that series addressed the question of why the first playable female characters were all naked, which was a very interesting video. So if any of this stuff sounds appealing to you, go check out A Critical Hit. So last month I got just a few pickups, not too much for a change. Let's start with, let's go oldest to newest. The first pickup is Thousand Arms. This is a PS1 JRPG / dating sim. It's by Atlas, and Atlas always makes good and kind of weird games, which is right up my alley. I have not played this before, but I was trading in some stuff that I didn't want. If you watched my video game collection, like a lot of the NES games and things where I'm like, I don't really like this game, I just decided to trade those things in for some new stuff. So Thousand Arms was one of those, and unfortunately does not have a manual. So if anyone ever sees a spare Thousand Arms manual or a spare Star Ocean Second Story manual, let me know, because I am interested in it. The second thing I got, just because I'm apparently on a JRPG roll, is Wild Arms 3. I've heard a lot of good things about the Wild Arms series, but I've never played any of them myself. I really like the look of the art on the back of this game and look forward to trying this honestly at some point. It probably won't be anytime soon, but I just another thing that sort of caught my attention. The next thing I got is a battle axe, and this is by Bitmap Bureau, who also made Xenogears. It's got very beautiful pixel art in it. It's got some character designs that are definitely giving me some World of Warcraft vibes, but it's just beautiful game. You can play solo or couch co-op, and it's sort of like a top-down action game, and you can play as either like a ranged mage or a warrior or like a assassin with daggers and things like that. Pretty fun. What I've played of it so far, quite difficult. It does seem to be overly zoomed in on the characters, but other than that, it's been a lot of fun. Looking forward to playing some more. And then, for the third time now, I have purchased Hades. I got it digital on Switch day one because that was the only option other than PC. And then when they said they were doing a Switch physical, I was like, okay, I want that. And then later, they're like, oh, also, here's an Xbox physical. And it's like, okay, well, that's my preferred place to play. So I traded in my Switch copy, not for as much as this cost, but, and got it on Xbox as well. So now hopefully I'm done with purchasing Hades. Alright, now on to what I've been playing. As I mentioned, I played through Blade Runner, the 1997 Westwood Studios game. It is a PC point-and-click adventure with a very cool visual style and like an impeccable aesthetic. It really captures the feeling of the movie incredibly well. It's also got really good voice acting. Pretty good writing, and it's sort of like a side story to the first Blade Runner movie, and you play a Blade Runner who's looking for replicants, and you're told that you can basically kill them on sight. So you start out investigating a sort of break-in and series of murders, including animal murders at a pet store, and it sort of all just spirals into conspiracies and a lot of mysteries from there. And it was a really interesting game. It's got a very different mechanic than most sort of adventure games. You have an inventory, but there's no like using items on other items. It's all just like a collection of every piece of evidence you've collected, every dialogue you've taken or interrogation you've done, and it's really, really cool. I generally liked it. There's some things I found a little irritating, like there's some time-based things where you just sort of have to catch things happening at the right time, and it's not obvious when those times are. So I did find myself occasionally just sort of flailing around, just visiting every location again, trying to sort of trigger something into happening. But I did quite like the game. However, I did not like my ending, and I am going to talk about the ending I got. There are multiple endings as far as I know in this game. Who in the game is a replicant can change from game to game, so, your results may vary, but if you do not want to know about one of the endings of the game, skip forward to the next one I talk about. But everything was going pretty well, and there's this character. She's a 14-year-old girl. She worked at the place that you are investigating right at the beginning of the game, and you finally track her down, and she starts talking about how you two are gonna run away together. And I'm like, well, no, you're 14. We're not gonna run away together. But then your character is like, oh yeah, yep, if we get out of this, I'm gonna take you away from here. I was like, what? No, I didn't agree to this. And then at the end of the game, like, we literally drove off into the sunset or into the sewers together, and I found that quite unappealing. So that was very weird. That kind of put a weird spin on the game that I had quite enjoyed up until then. So yeah, that was quite a decision that was made by the writers there. But I really wish I had gotten a different ending, and I probably would have had much more positive feelings about the games. But yeah, that was that. Another thing I played that I started out on stream and then finished on my own time is called An Airport for Aliens, currently run by dogs, which is quite a mouthful, and it is a very strange and very charming game. You and your fiancé are the last two humans in the galaxy. Otherwise, it's aliens and it's dogs and a few cats. And you and your fiancé are meeting at a series of airports throughout the galaxy. She's working on some big top secret project, and you're sort of meeting up with her when you can. And along the way, you talk to a whole bunch of dogs, and they're just like stock images of dogs as far as I know, and they all act like dogs. They say things that you could imagine a dog saying, and honestly, this is probably one of the funniest games I've ever played. Like, every single dialogue is just really endearing. Just like the characters you talk to, they're just so dog-like, and they say the things that dogs would say. And it was really, really funny. I really enjoyed it. It was very fun to stream and sort of like do the voices and things for it. It started to outstay its welcome a little bit by the end of it in order to sort of bring the story to an end. But you're basically just going around having all these really funny conversations, and then once you get to your fiancé, they're very sort of heartfelt and deep and make you sort of question the nature of reality and the world and relationships. And it was just a very well written game, and I really enjoyed it. If you're into that kind of thing, I definitely recommend it. Again, that's An Airport for Aliens, currently run by dogs. Another one, which I started on stream and then finished on my own, is called The Big Con, and Mighty Yell is the name of the studio that makes it, and they are a local studio here in Toronto, which is pretty awesome. And this is a game very much about 90s nostalgia. You play a teenage girl who works with her mom in their family video store, but find out that it's sort of in danger, and you run away from home and you turn into a con artist in order to try to make enough money to save your your video store. And it's really good as well. Like, it's very earnest. You are basically stealing from people and tricking people and conning people, but you're doing it for good reasons. And it's just like got this really cool color palette and aesthetic. Again, it's pretty amusing in terms of writing. The gameplay is more on the simple side, but it's a lot more about sort of exploring all these locations, overhearing people's conversations so you can use that information in order to con them later, and there's a nice overall story as well. I overall really liked it. I did have a few crashing problems while I was playing it on Xbox, but generally had a really good time and thought it was a great game. And the next thing I played was Psychonauts 2, which I was very much looking forward to. If you remember, a few months ago I talked about playing Psychonauts 1, and while I quite enjoyed a lot about it, I just found the gameplay was just a little too dated for that 3D platforming, and I ended up giving up before I got to the end of the game. This is mechanically and in terms of UI, extremely similar to the first game. Everything, just has that extra bit of polish and that, extra 15-ish years of experience in developing 3D platformers, so it feels much nicer to play, and I've rarely found myself frustrated by the platforming or the combat segments here. The combat still, isn't my favorite thing in the world, but it's fine. It's usable. The best thing about it is just the writing and the story and the aesthetic. It's obviously very similar to the aesthetic in the first game, but again, just the graphical improvements just really make it pop and make everything look so good. It's another quite funny game that's just full of jokes, whether, in text or just little background things and visual gags, and I really liked it. I loved the story. I felt like they really went in on that idea of going into someone's brain and seeing what's hanging out there and what's causing them problems or giving them baggage, and being able to do things like reconnect ideas in someone's brain, which I thought was a really interesting concept, but also the dangers of, basically manipulating someone like that, even if they're allowing you into their brain. And overall, I just thought it was fantastic. Finished the whole thing, and probably for sure one of the best games this year. Another game I played on stream is called Octobug, and this is a very cute little game where you play a spider, I assume, although he's called an Octobug, and you go around. It's like a little platformer, and you go around killing all the flies in the area as you go. And it's just a little short game, but it does some really cool narrative things in terms of subverting your expectations of what you're doing. And I thought it was very clever. It's available over on itch. It's only a couple dollars, and it's only like maybe an hour long if you're going to do everything there is to do in that game. But I thought it was very good and very simple, but the controls were solid and made it enjoyable to play, and again, narratively, quite enjoyable. Another game I played on stream is Teacup, which is a very charming game about a frog who is having a tea party, but they've run out of tea. So you have to go around their village and the environments around it, talking to people, solving their problems, and in return, they give you tea. This is a very, very chill game. It's got really nice music. It's got a beautiful pixel art style. It's almost like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it looks like painted, like someone's just sort of like sprayed paint across the canvas, but it all comes together to make cute environments and characters. And it was just really nice if you're in the mood for something that's just chill. Maybe you can learn something about different types of teas, just a lot of conversations and simple puzzle solving in order to finish this one. It's another one that's on the shorter side. I think it's around 2-ish hours long to do the whole thing, and I think it's available on pretty much every console and platform, but Teacup was quite adorable. Another one I played on stream that I'm a little less crazy about is Mind Scanners. I had a good time playing it like with an audience and while chatting to people, but when I tried to continue it on my own, I found I was losing interest fairly quickly. You're in a sort of dystopia where people are declared crazy, basically, and you as a mind scanner have to go and fix them. Of course, since it's dystopia, the government doesn't care how you fix them, even if that fixing them means that you sort of wipe out their personalities completely. And some things are just like people questioning how things work, and that's considered, deviant, and they don't want that to happen. So it's definitely got a bit of a Papers, Please vibe to it, where you have to decide whether you're going to do your job and make enough money to continue living and pursue your own goals, or whether you're going to work with this sort of resistance force that comes into contact with you. The problem I have with it is that the mind scans are basically little twitchy mini games, like rotating a dial at a very even speed, or doing dials until words appear on the screen and you can see them, or doing a Simon Says kind of puzzle thing. But everything is timed, and it just got a little tedious after a while. It was sort of the same kind of mini games. I did like some of the writing and some of the characters that you're meeting and the overall concept of it. It was just the actual mechanics of what you're doing kind of wore out their welcome pretty soon. So I think I'm going to be retiring that one. I got an hour or two enjoyment out of it, but it wasn't really enough to want me to push through and make it to the end of the game. And finally, some co-op games I played this month. First, my group of friends tried the Ascent, which is available on Xbox Game Pass, and we bounced off that really quickly. I've heard some people have been having fun playing it solo, but as a multiplayer game, it was just really boring. Maybe you just don't get abilities quick enough, but you're basically just doing a twin stick shooter and shooting everything you see and running long distances between objectives. We sort of finally called it quits when mid-mission I disconnected and then was just not able to join the game again. So I would have had to wait for them to finish the mission, or they would have had to abandon it for me to get back in, which just isn't a fun way to do things. And the other problem I had was everything on screen is so small and so hard to read, which you know is one of my most annoying things in games. Like, just make the text size bigger. You can make the subtitles bigger, which barely ever appear, but the menus and everything else is just so small. But we did have a much better experience with Overcooked 2. I played Overcooked 1 with a friend on stream like years ago and had a lot of fun with that. Playing it with 4 people was even more fun. It's very hectic. It requires a lot of communication as you're following these recipes, gathering ingredients, and cooking various types of food, all the while your environment is sort of moving around and changing as time goes by. So it requires a lot of planning and a lot of communication, which is just like, I think, a good thing for a, for a cooperative game to do. We played through the entire thing. It was, I think there's 6 stages with like 6 levels in each one, and they were all a lot of fun. They could be frustrating, occasionally could be stressful, but loved Overcooked 2. So I think that's it for what I've been playing. I have a few other things on the go, but I didn't finish any of them this month. I also started playing Death's Gambit Afterlife, which is a new expansion of Death's Gambit, which came out, I think in 2018, and I'm really enjoying it. I started out on stream, and then I've been playing it a little more myself. It's a very Souls-inspired Metroidvania, very sort of precise dodge and parry and blocking heavy combat. Beautiful pixel art in it, and yeah, having a lot of fun with that. I might even review it if that, you know, seems like something I still want to do by the time I get to the end of the game, but I will talk more about that at some point in the future. Hello, I'm here. It's okay. I haven't forgotten about you. What you've done to my pants. And the couch I just vacuumed. So that is all my updates for September. Leave me a comment, let me know what you've been playing, if you've gotten any interesting pickups. Don't forget to check out A Critical Hit for some great video game history videos, and check out the fundraiser I'm doing over on Twitch. If you can support at all, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.